Prepare for the return of the Alternative View Conference, AV5. Humanity versus Insanity, a conference that will make a difference. Featuring the most challenging and thought-provoking speakers from across the globe. May the 16th to the 18th, 2014. Staverton Park Hotel, Daventry, Northamptonshire. AV5, the Alternative View.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see most of you back in again. I'm sorry I couldn't finish off last night what I'd like to. I'm going to try and hold Daisy's question to the end because there are two more important things to get out. And these are real alternatives. I've been very much involved since 1991 in creating a different form of energy from an understanding. And I discovered this, believe it or not, with a model railway. And I got a model railway in the loft of my house, and it was running round across windows. And I built it, and it's 30 foot across the windows. So I tapped the track perfectly one afternoon, and then went off and went to work. And when I come back the next day, the sun had been on it all day. And the metal had expanded, and it had smashed all the track up and split it all out. And that day, by sheer coincidence, I was working on an injection mould in my factory. I was trying to get the two sides to close on a 450-ton machine. And it was half a degree colder on one side than the other. And the machine wouldn't close because of that half a degree distance. And I, for many years, had been allowing on the expansion and contraction of metal to work for it. And then all of a sudden I said, why don't we harness that power? And the track, when I got home, made me think even more about it. So I set about working out how you could do it. And the first thing I realised, we'd have to extend it to a higher level, a much, much higher level. I approached Pilkingtons. Do you all know that Pilkington produce glass lenses and things? Okay. I asked them to produce me a lens that could collect the light from 6 metres and condense it onto 2 centimetres. And they told me yes, they could do it. Well, it would only cost me £1.2 million per foot. So I was quite abashed at this. And having created lots of model railway plastic components, I had 17 moulding machines. I was producing enough product to supply 600 shops in England. I was exporting to 40 countries, and I got my own engineering sections and design units. And of course I thought, well, hang on a minute, if I can make the perfect windows in railway coaches, I can also do this. So I rang the people that I knew up in Hong Kong, and as you probably gather, I'm having a little bit difficulty on the front, right? And I'd rang the people in Hong Kong. Yeah. Take it down. No, it's got to go down. We're talking of the steel.
Do you want to slide that down?
Yeah, if I can get hold of it. Ah, there it is.
There's that little button. Slide that.
That's it. I couldn't see it. That's it.
Put it on the one you want to start on.
That's it. Start on that one.
Go to slideshow. Oops. Do you want me to do it?
Yeah.
Right. Don't move. Don't move. Don't move. You move it. So, right. Don't move. Don't move. Right. And then go from current slide.
Okay.
Build a nuclear plant and can't work a computer.
It's not a nuclear plant, but it's pretty close. Right. I hope everyone can hear me properly. Right, good. Okay. Well, I was very concerned because I'm very environmental conscious. I spent many years working with the Ministry of Agriculture with livestock. I used to import and export foreign birds for them, anything up to 80,000, right, every 25 to 30 weeks. Take them through quarantine and reship them all over the world. Wasn't a trade I liked. And finally, when I got out of it into making model railways, I was absolutely delighted. And then I realised that we need a better problem. So mankind is now facing its most serious situation as the old systems of governance are beginning to break down. We, the human race, are short of many essential commodities. We're short of clean, renewable, non-polluting energy. We're told there is an energy crisis. We are running short of clean water. We require more food to feed the expanding population. Solar Steel has answered this question with 3 methods of power generation: steam power units, solar charged thermal exchange units, solar charged thermal desalination plants. We are all now aware of the levels of governmental and controlling corruption, and this has resulted in the death of democracy. We now need a system to replace that which is real democracy. So the solar seal aspect is, having realised that you can take the power out of expanding metal, we needed a method to heat up and bar a long metal bar. And the only way we could do this, or I thought we could do this, was to make a magnifying glass. But the problem is with magnifying glasses, it goes to a point. So we spent a lot of time and money making a linear lens that would collect the light from 6 metres and condense it onto 2 centimetres. And we'd succeeded. This is the first graphics of what we tried to do many years ago. It's a 9-lens unit, and the lenses reach from the centre and collect the light and condense it on the central bar. And this was a simple steam power generation. On one side you feed into the central bar water, which as it goes along the central bar is heated up by the lenses, and this causes refraction. The temperatures raised are phenomenal, and we instantly turn water into steam. This is the first computer graphics we made of doing it, and of course the water comes in, as you can see, it divides into 3 separate channels. The 3 separate channels under the pressure only of the height of the water, then runs along the centre of each of the tubes, and the lens is following the sun, guide the light down onto the tube, heat it up, and the steam is then channelled into a single unit, which then enters a turbine and produces power. Isn't that simple? So why hasn't it been done before? Eh? I think I've told you the answer when it's £1.2 million a foot for a lens. So I went to China and spoke to my friends. We set about designing a system where we make a lens, and a lens is in a flat piece. It has to be mass produced. So we take it in a special type of polycarbonate, and no, I'm not going to tell you to time. And the type of polycarbonate is only 3/16 of an inch thick. And in a full length of a metre, there are no less than 1,010 straight lines of angles, and every one is at a different angle. So from a flat surface, we can collect all the light and concentrate it onto a single one. We started to build this in Blackpool, and when I applied for patents in 1991, I got the worldwide patent for the production of electricity utilising the expansion and contraction of metal when subject to solar radiation. Wonderful, I thought. Then come 1994, I'm told I have to reapply while it goes through all the different countries' aspects. And I realised then I hadn't actually got a patent, I'd got a patent application. And then I thought, well, we'll improve on this because we've done a lot of work. So I put 4 more additional patents in. That was death. As soon as the Patents Office got them, I received a phone call. And I was expanding my exhibition, my factory in Winsford, and I'd moved to Wales. I'd bought another factory. And I was buying stock for Christmas, and it was expanding. The bank manager come to me, see me, he said, "You bought your new factory?" I said, "Yes." He said, "And you're building your stocks up for Christmas?" I said, "Yes." And he said to me, "Have you insured your new factory?" I said, "Well, not yet." He said, "Well, you must, because you owe the bank some money." I said, "Okay, no problem. I'll ring my accountant." Start again, my insurance agent. They're all the same, by the way. They're all parasites. So I rang my insurance agent who came to see me. And he was looking around at everything. He said, well, it's going to cost you a vast amount of money to insure your new factory because it's new. It's on the banks of the River Dee. It's really modern. It's got all been refurbished beautifully. And you're going to put into it masses of stock. I said, well, I've already shipped 10 40-foot containers of machines, equipment and stuff there. To which he said, it's going to cost you something like £150,000 initially. I said, well, we can't afford that. So I said to the thing, I said, okay, no problem. I said, well, just get set. I said, and I'll contact you. 3 days later, I had a visit by the bank manager and the insurance guy together. Does that stink to you? Yeah. And they got talking. And out of their conversation, they slipped that they'd known I'd applied for patents. How did they know that? Because I certainly never told them. And of course, we got a wonderful model alongside of the factory. And in the roof on the top, we got a perfect full-scale model of the large one, which I'll show you in a minute. And he said, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I haven't got the money. I've only got about £20,000. I said, I can give you that. I said, in another 2 weeks, I'll have only be another 10, 15, and then we can pay it off that way. He said, well, no, he said, because your insurance policy in Winsford is due for renewal in 2 weeks' time. And then the insurance guy said, I've got a brilliant idea. He said, why don't we transfer your existing policy to your new factory? Because you're shifting a 40-foot container every day out of it into your new one, and by the time it comes to renew the old one for Winsford, it'll be at a much lower premium level. I said, sounds logical. He said, well, hope that nothing happens in between. 4 days later, I'm helping to unload the lorry at Llangollen, and it's tea time, time to go home. And I went to a cafe and stayed in a cafe. And then I drove to the new house I'd just bought, which the bank didn't like, because I'd bought a beautiful old hall for only £90,000 at an auction. Wonderful. It recently got sold, by the way, for £6 million. Right? I bought it for 90,000, but it was a second grade listed. It was, you couldn't do much with it apart from return it to its original glory, which is what I wanted to do. And of course, the bank manager got really upset when I told him he had to pay half of that. And of course, when I was in the cafe, I felt something wrong. So I went back home to the hall. And 5 minutes later, a car comes driving up the drive with all headlights on. And it's a friend of my daughter who'd made friends with this woman for a couple of days. And she told me that the factory was on fire and I needed to go to Winsford immediately. Well, I picked the phone up and I rang the factory number, which then rang out and rang out and rang out. And I thought, maybe she's kidding, but I was preparing to go, to then suddenly have 3 police cars flying up the drive. One was from Crewe, one was from Northwich, and one was from Llangollen. And they'd been trying to get hold of me everywhere to tell me the factory was on fire. Well, I did the distance that you normally do in just over 45 minutes, in 30 odd minutes. And before I arrived in Winsford, I could see the fire, I could smell it, and I could hear the explosions of the paint rooms and the mechanical rooms going off. I was gobsmacked. I arrived and the whole building, apart from the office block and the spray rooms, was on fire from end to end. This is a 33,000 square foot factory. And guess what? It was packed with finished stock, ready for the Christmas rush. I was horrified. And I dreaded it. And the fireman come round to me and said, what do you want us to do? We can either save the 2 houses attached to you, or we can try to damp the fire down in the middle. I said, save the houses on the side. And of course I spent the next 12 hours, most agonising hours, watching everything being destroyed. And then I said, sod it, I'm not going down. As long as the moulds have survived the fire, the moulds you put on the injection machines, we can start again to a degree. And with the spray room saved, it had got 1 million plus items in components of coaches and wagons and locomotives and toys, in part finished. We had to save the moulds. And out of the blue, a salesman called who'd only been once before. He said, I've got a marvellous new product, it's called Turbo. If you spray it on metal, it preserves it instantly. So I immediately ordered 10 gallons of it, and he delivered it. And when the fire had been put out, I walked into the actual factory, and underneath it, all the things had come down on top of the moulds, which were all on pallets. And for 3 days and nights, without a break, I went and I opened the moulds with crowbars. Some of these moulds were 2 and 3 tons in weight, and there were hundreds of small ones, just over 1,300 moulds. It took me 3 days and 3 nights without a break. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I walked off the site. There was lots of all the staff were all helping doing as much as they could, but I wouldn't let them in that part because it was dangerous. When I'd finished opening them all, spraying them all, there was no one around, so I walked out in the street, took all my clothes totally off in the middle of the street, got in the car, drove home and had a shower and a wash and come back again, picked my clothes up and went back in to protect it, to say how we could get going. And we saved the moulds. I only lost 1 mould damage. If the faces of the mould get destroyed by the water from the things and the expanding and contraction of the heat in the fire, right, they were ruined. But I'd actually saved every single one by spraying their faces. I was delighted at that. And then I had a shop. I supplied, as I said, 600 customers, and word got round like mad. I needed money. And everyone that owed me money, bar 2, sent it me within 48 hours. Wonderful. And then the company Boyle, who make moulding machines, came to see me. And I explained that we'd got this new factory, but there was no machines, no moulding machines. And immediately he said, right, I tell you what we'll do, we'll do a lease sale to you. He said, you can have it for the first 3 months for nothing. So I got 3 moulding machines, which meant we could go into production and complete the models that were in the spray room that were not finished. And of course, in this time, we're dragging all the stuff out of it. And of course, we're now under enormous pressure. Guess who from? The bank. Where's me money? Where's this? Where's that? And I was forced then, by the council, to knock the rest of the building down, because it was a longer road, part of it. It also attached to a terraced house at one end. And thank God, 2 firemen got up into the loft of that part and stopped the fire going along. And of course, setting all that up and clearing all that, we ended up with this area of land. And I had to take the first offer. The first offer to keep the bank quiet just happened to be a friend of the bank managers. I was so pressurised. So if you want to know why I hate banks and insurance companies, you're getting a bit closer. And the other 2 parasites, accountants, solicitors, and what call other professional people, the insurance people. To me, a professional person is somebody who thinks they know more about you and will charge you as much as they can, in any way they can, so they can have the life they wish. In other words, legalised theft. So, of course, we completed it. I was determined not to go down. You can check all this. Please go on the internet and see it all down. The Dapol factory in Winsford, 1995. I was quite stunned. And it didn't click onto me. It was the patents and the knowledge of the patents which was the problem. Because you see, before we had the fire, I went to see Hatton. Does anybody remember who Hatton is? The energy secretary. Yeah. And I met his secondary compartment. And I spent half a day with him showing what we could do with this new design that we'd got. To which he said, it's not been proved, not been tested. And I said, well, how about some assistance in the form of finance? He said, well, you'll have to go to the North West Development Agency in Warrington. I thought, okay. And while it was going on, I was getting the whisper that from between them that they weren't really interested. And I thought, that's funny. So when I went to Warrington to collect the money, or to talk and get a grant, as soon as I said who I was, out come the brochures. And he said, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Boyle, there's no way we can help you. I said, why not? You give money away for all developments. Here's a new product that's brilliant for what you want, so why don't you assist me? He said, well, it doesn't fit all our criteria. And he gave me this great big wad of things which we had to fill in. For me to get a percentage of money, I had to guarantee employing set numbers of people for a period of time. And I thought, well, why should I sign all these? Because at that time, of course, I was quite well off. I was looking forward to a bumper Christmas and having a lot of spare money to do it myself, which of course never materialised. And then finally we got it all set. The factory was rebuilt in Llangollen. We started to trade, and in a period of 4 months we'd been from burnt down into a phoenix bird re-resin. And there's actually some nice articles in some of the model railway magazines about it. Because at that time, by the way, they used to call me Mr. Model Railways. Because I'd not only started my own company, Daypole Model Railways, standing for David and Pauline, my first wife, but we also did many, many other things. And I made a lot of royal family figures for the Queen, by the Queen's permission. Whole ranges of them, 4 inches in scale, of which we lost just under $500,000 in the fire. So I was quite disappointed, but worked hard. Do you know I didn't have an hour off for a whole year? That's from in the morning till last thing at night. Back to work, checking everything. And we built it up again and it was running. We started to supply it all over the world. And it's then I decided to say, well, am I going to continue with this electrical development or not? And I decided, yes, I would. So we decided we'd build our own first sections. And we'd already had 2 wonderful models in the exhibition which had been burnt down, in the factory which had been burnt down. And along the side of it was a set of bars and systems. And we were operating that by heating and cooling water through a washing machine. And the expansion and contraction was working. So finally, at the end of that, we said, sorry, let's start again, let's look at it. So I went to China and spoke to my guys, which I needed to do for the production of more models and parts. And while I was over there, I discussed with a guy how to make these lenses. And we talked about it. And so he set about making me lenses 1 metre long, 70 centimetres wide, and in each metre length, there's 1,010 different angles. This is a different system ever been made before. The bottom part is moulded as one piece. And when you see it, just the mould, the top comes up, it's got these lenses, thousands of them in rows. And then you spray on top of that a very fine silver paint. And when it dries, you put the mould back in again with a different top mould. And very slowly you inject the plastic into it till it's one piece. And all of a sudden we're able to mass produce the lens that we're going to cost at 1.2 million for £3,000 a foot, which is a lot better, a lot better. So it's at that point we can start to work on it. And of course we expand, and then my first wife and I decided to part company, and unfortunately I fell into the plucked chicken. She got everything, I got nothing, right? And at that time I decided I would come to Blackpool to open an exhibition because I'd been switched on. In the house in Wales, I'd come face to face with what everyone here would wish to, a grey alien, which totally gave me the proof that what I was understanding and learning was real, which is why I'll stand up here and tell you that. Okay? Aliens do exist. But now I know the aliens in the past were called angels. And of course we sat on this point. It didn't hurt me. It didn't do anything other than stand in front of me, which I looked at it and made sure it was 3D, looking all the way around it. And as soon as I questioned it by my mind, thinking, I realised it was listening to what I was thinking. And then it just went out and away. And I was quite gobsmacked for a long time. I had to sit down for a good 8 hours and consider what I'd just seen and what was done. That brought me into finding out what's going on. And then I suddenly realised what a wonderful career I'd had to teach me to be able to be... You see, not only I've had work with the quarantine of animals in large numbers, I'd had a precision injection moulding company, right? And a precision engineering company. Okay, 5 more minutes. And I got so much more I couldn't do. The understanding, I got so many things. I had a dress company, I was supplying all over the world, wholesale, retail, distribution, and I'd been taught how to analyse everything. So therefore, I could synthesise. Well, we started to build the test models in Blackpool. And now we've got the first full-size set of 3 lens rigs in Bourne in Lincolnshire. We're already getting fabulous temperatures. This is now being evolved into a 9-lens rig, as you saw on the beginning. To be able to not be pressurised out it, I thought I'll go and sleep with the Dragon, or sleep with the enemy. So I went to see a company, it's called Lark Engineering, who are the biggest solar panels company in the country. And most of your solar panels on your roofs come from Lark. And he was so intrigued on a different method that he looked to the future and he funded this full-size rig being created now. This is only part of what it will do, right? It does many things. It generates large amounts of steam, and if you go and see Julie afterwards, right, she's got on her phone a section of it. Well, this is what it was designed for. Expansion and contraction. She put a large lens on the middle length, and it expands between 0 and 400 degrees. We'll give you an example. 60 metres length, between 0 and 400 degrees, will expand approximately 14 inches, and it will create a pressure, if you use stainless steel, in excess of 4.5 million tonnes per square inch. You've all seen railway lines kink. You've all seen Tower Bridge lift off its rates. You cannot stop the expansion of metal except by cooling the actual metal or the destruction of the molecules. Stainless steel will only start to destroy over 4.5 million tonnes per square inch. Our intention is to use a 4-inch tube with a 2-inch hole in the middle, right, which gives a phenomenal amount of expansion. And as you can see at the end, if that expands, it can then drive hydraulic tubes. And those hydraulic tubes on the piston force fluid out through a hydraulic motor and back in the other end of the piston. So when the whole thing has expanded, we inject cold water in the middle, which instantly turns to steam. The steam is then channeled into the 2 outer ones. So as the middle one contracts, it works in reverse. Right? All you need is double bypass valves on the cylinders and you'll get a constant flow. A single expansion of this, right, is capable to produce enough hydraulic fluid. It'll take approximately an hour to an hour and a half to expand 1 bar. And that'll produce enough pressure to make 250,000 litres of hydraulic fluid operating at 4,500 pounds pressure per square inch, which is enough to drive the largest turbine in a nuclear power station. We only need 6. The cost of building a set of 9 lenses and working together is around £1 million. So for £6 million, we can replace a nuclear power station. But that's not all it'll do. Because as you inject cold water in it, it turns to steam, which is channeled out. And if you inject poisoned water, fracking water for a start, salt water, the steam that comes out is pure. And if you allow it to condense, it produces. So here's the full rig. This is a solar charged thermal exchange, desalination and power plant. It's got 6 sets of those pump systems, right? It's reduced in scale, it's wider than this, as you can understand. Right. Now, the salt water injected into it, that plant is going to cost somewhere in the region of £40 million. It's capable of pumping 4,000 tonnes of water per day to a height of 50 metres and desalinating 75%, which results we'll have 3,000 tonnes of clean water a day. These are to green the deserts. This on the coast is capable of pumping the water in the systems and spreading it out and irrigate enough desert to feed at least 20 million people. And you can pass them on from pumping station to pumping station. This is designed to be on the coast by the deserts. Most of what we're doing is, of course, more designated for the inner areas. Here's our first generation of a big power plant that we expect to work on that level. following the sun as it moves. As it expands and contracts, it'll move from pipe to pipe as it goes from the central one to the frames. Because what I forgot to tell you was on the other picture, when you've heated the central one up and you're starting to cool it, you inject water into it, which turns to steam, which goes into the outer two ones. The outer two ones, right, are then capable of expanding. So you've got the central one contracting and the outer one's expanding. So you're doubling up all of the time. And you're creating surplus. And the lenses move from the central one to the outer ones. And as you can see, the central point's moving in and out on pistons, producing it. As you can see, we've done an awful lot of work on this. And it'll do the most important things. It'll produce unlimited power, pollution-free. I'm sure you... Pardon?
Did you get the patent?
I got a lot of harassment from the patents. No, we haven't put any more patents in.
Good thinking.
Because I can tell you now, I'm still alive because of that. And a lot of people will agree, and you do, obviously. Okay. I just hope now that Lark Energy isn't pressurised by the cabal, because Lark Energy are now funding the expansion and contraction workings and the ready to movement. We expect to build our first steam unit in approximately 10 or 12 weeks. We've already got test orders for Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, Australia, Turkey and Malta. So, I've arranged a factory in Blackpool, which I want to control and be there to check everything. And with a bit of, I'm not going to tell you where it is. I don't want any pressure on them yet. So you can see what I've been working on this side. So that's one part of the talk I want to give you now. Okay. I can't really tell you too many details, but I think I've certainly told you enough. And I hope I've stimulated your imagination. Okay. So now I'd like to come to the other part of this talk. What a wonderful exhibition you've had today and yesterday. What super teachers. What's talk? Lovely to me to listen to them. I was quite stunned to find, I told you there's only light and sound, to see the first talking this morning, showing you the arrival of sound producing the life that we now know is inside the light. And lots of the information given by everybody else told us. We all know that we have a corrupt government system. I don't know if you know this, but in 2001, after 9/11, I was totally pissed off with our governments. So I decided to open my own political party. Does anybody remember this? There's a few of you with hands up, yes. So we called it WTC, World Truth Coalition. Or is it World Trade Center? Right. And when we had our first meeting, and there was about 100 of us there, we sat and talked, we suddenly realised, it's no good this. We're going to perpetuate a totally evil system. So why stay with it? So I discussed with everybody and I sat down and I thought, let's produce what we all want. So what do we all want? And the answer came this. Something we're all involved in. Something that's totally open. Something that can't be corrupted. Something that's for the benefit of everyone. So I decided I'd look at it. Now, before we go too far in it, this is a crop circle that appeared after a lecture I gave, and it shows at the top end, shows you at the bottom here, a being passing information to a whole. The whole is a sphere representing a complete being, which also then divides itself equally between the two halves, light and dark. So the swallow shape represents a fully conscious being. Very important for that as we go through. So the swallow representation is a fully conscious being. So then we come to the form of government. I've spoken about councils of 12 to a couple of people. And they've come to see me, and I've said to every single person I've got, if you can improve on it, please come and tell me. If you think it's not right, please come and tell me. What a stony silence. So now I'm going to announce it for the first time to you here. Because I know it's what you want. It's what we all need. With the exposing of the corruption and dishonesty within all the world's governments, mankind now needs a new form of governance. One that is equal for every person on the planet, with everyone involved, which is true democracy, operating openly, with honesty and integrity. This is Councils of 12. So please listen right throughout this. Okay? I'll try to explain it in as best detail as I can. If you collect together in your local area 13 people, which becomes a council or a base group, and when you get together, select a leader for the first year, then you give everyone else in that sequence a number to become the leader the following year. So everyone will get a turn. That leader will sit in a council of 12 leaders overseeing 144 people. Children under the age of 16 will keep with the parents but will not be counted in the councils until they reach the right age. Right, the leader, who could be a 16-year-old, right, or anyone selected, will sit in this council of 12 groups of leaders, overseeing 144 people. Their only job will be to travel and visit every single member of their group every day, except when they're on holiday or away on business, they need to contact them by telephone. That's the job. And if anyone's got a problem in that job or anything in their group, they can pass the information on to the next level. Easy. Even the youngsters can do that. At the end of 12 months, that council will meet. From that council, in any way they wish, they can select one person to go to a higher group. If you don't want to go up, it's okay, just say so. Right? One person to go to a higher group. Everyone else returns to the base group, and the next person in the base group takes their place. The one that's going up sits in a council of 12, overseeing 12 groups. And now you're looking after 1,728 people. You're not commanding or demanding. It's now at very low government levels, or very levels, parish council type levels. And of course, at the end of 12 months, everything that group does, they talk about, and they have to move one up, and everyone else down. But now we come to the 4th level. And on the 4th level, you're talking to 20,000 plus people at town council style level. And now responsibility comes in it. And now the councils change from 12s to councils of elders, because nobody under the age of 40 will be allowed to join the 4th group or higher. And that's because the people over 40 have lived life long enough to understand it and not come straight in to be indoctrinated from school, university, without having the experience. So now it's become councils of elders. And on the 4th level, full responsibility is taken for everything. You're fully responsible for 3 aspects. First of all, the planet comes first. Second, the ecosystem comes second. And third, mankind's needs come third. Excuse me, I haven't mentioned mankind's wants yet, have I? Okay? And you're totally responsible in that council for all the things that you govern on the people beneath you. At the end of 12 months, you'll meet and discuss every single thing, because you're now fully responsible for everything. There's no getting away with it. You're responsible for all the decisions you've made before you select one to go to a higher level, and everyone else goes back to the base route. So nobody stays in a level more than the once. You either go up or down. We now come to the 6th level, and now your borders start to disappear because you're overseeing all of these people. On the 5th level, you oversee 248,832 people. A small town, or getting towards a city level. So you now need full responsibility. On the next level, on the 6th level, you're looking at after 2,985,984 people, which of course is the level of what? The level of a city. And on your next level, you're looking for 5,831,000 people. If you've got a problem while you're a leader in any of these levels, you've got all the other councillors to speak on, all those that's above you, and any that's beneath you. So it's not beyond anyone's capability, is it? And you've got masses of help from all the other people that's there. And then now we get to the interesting levels. The 6th and 7th level. At one of these levels, you will become a judge. And you have to pass through this to get any higher. The emblem of the judge will be a double-headed fascia. Today we have a single-headed axe in a fascia. This will contain the knowledge of how things work with 12 emblems and 2 axe heads. If the judge wields the axe with vested interests, the other axe head is for the judge. That might put a few judges off and change it. But we need a completely new judiciary system, so let's start talking about what we need. First of all, the courts of law will be dissolved and replaced with courts of justice, because there's a big difference between the law and the justice. The right to silence will be removed. Because if you don't want to speak, you're frightened of incriminating yourself. And just to balance it out, any solicitor or lawyer who defends a guilty person and knows about it will receive the same sentence as the defendant. I don't think many solicitors will be very sitting on the benches for long, being open, honest and trustworthy. And you finally come to the 8th level. Same thing, every one of them. No staying in the same levels. One goes up, selected by that council. Everyone else goes down below. Doesn't matter how you select it, the councils will do it. True democracy. On the 8th level, you support the leader of the planet. The leader of the planet will be basically a figurehead with 12 people supporting him. The Council of Elders. And they'll have the councils below them supporting them. So the leader of the planet will be the head for exactly 1 year. And do you know where it goes at the end of the first year? To the bottom, to start again. So every single person on the planet will have the opportunity at least 4 times in your life to raise up the councils to become the leader of the planet. This is wonderful when you think about it. It gives us all a perfectly equal opportunity. No one will ever die alone again, because everyone will be visited. It will give everybody a sense of belonging to their group, to their area. And what's beautiful in it won't require any political parties at all. Won't need any politicians. And when it gets into position and running, which I know it's going to, right, it'll create a wonderful atmosphere for all of us when we all wake up to what can be evolved out of it. There's many more things I can tell you what it can do for us. All religions will be tolerated. All clans. Diversity will be welcomed. So we can go to Japan and see Japanese people, not McDonald Westerners. And you can go to anywhere you wish, because everyone and every custom, every clan, every understanding still exists. And now I've got an idea this has brought in a one world government, but not the one that you are being terrified with. And a one world government of us, we, you and everyone else. I don't think you can produce a better. I would love to hear any additions that anyone thinks they can make to it, right, and to adjust it. This is the best system that I think is available. I wasn't the only ones that thought it was available and rather good. You saw that earlier crop circle? When we finally come to the last crop circles, or the last part of it, we understand that the leader of the planet may well represent the Earth on the council of the 12 planets of this solar system for 1 year. The day I put that into communication, look what happened on the ground. I gave 2 lectures the year before. The night of the first lecture, 6 fully conscious beings turned up. On the night of the second lecture, it became 12 fully conscious beings. Crop circles confirming from the universe. Universal confirmation from the aliens, the angels, the advanced beings who are the ones that made us, who have been guiding us and guarding us and taking us along the road of evolution, who have left in the ancient monuments the true history of the world and the archaeology which we're now beginning to discuss. So it's the beings from the higher levels that has taken us on to where it is. And that's the 2 things I wanted to talk to you about tonight. Please, on the stall next to the stand, I've got leaflets to take away. Not too many, but please take a leaflet if you want one, on Council of 12. It's fully explained and with all the other crop circles that have come to what I've taught in the books that I produced. It's lovely to hear from you all. It's lovely to have the honour to be able to share this information with you. Because I'm going to tell you this, we are all one. And when you go to your heart-mind inside yourself, and you're at ease, and I am at ease in my heart-mind, you and me, and I am you. And we're all one. And we all come from the same source. What you do to others, you do to yourself, and you do to me. So have a good life and a good time. Have I got enough time to answer your question, Daisy?
You do indeed, yeah. You've got probably 7 minutes.
Okay. Can you tell me what your question was again?
God, I can't remember. I think I had 2 questions. Yes. I asked you yesterday. Firstly, thank you very much, David. Rarely do we get a speaker that fuses science with spirituality in one presentation, and you did that seamlessly. My question was, as a Christian myself, I'm curious to know who created, in your view, the subatomic particles you were talking about yesterday. Because with all these beautiful geometric patterns and designs and all the perfect maths you were showing us yesterday, I see a divinity in it, a divine design.
Without doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, one of our greatest philosophers said, the science of numbers is a divine science. I'm going to tell you that the creation of all of this came from nothing. It was created from nothing. And it was created by movement. And if we go back to it, you've all been told, basically, in the Bible, the Quran, and many others, pieces of it. And when you put it together, you were told that there was the void and nothing else. Then in the void appeared a minute energy. And I showed you that energy yesterday. that energy divided itself into two. And having divided itself into two, it projected around itself, through its two poles, a membrane, which became a dot in a circle. And that appeared in the void. That's all there was. There was nothing else. You couldn't tell whether it was moving or anything, because there was nothing there. There was nothing set. Now let's put you right on the size of that energy. Okay? See if you can imagine this. You take a pinhead. You break it into 1 billion pieces. You then take one of those pieces, break that into 1 billion pieces, and you do that 7 times. And that's how big that energy appeared in the middle of the void. And you're told quite comfortably that that energy could only divide itself, within itself. So the one dot in the middle, which had divided into 2, then divided into 4, each one of the 2 halves divided. And then the 4 divided again to make 8. And each time they divided, each of the parts rotated, which then became an individual. A sphere, a rotation, becomes a whole. So this circle has got within it 8 separate circles. 8 plus the 1 on the outside. Make no mistake, that's what the Egyptians called the 9 gods of the Enid. And the 9 then was not the end, because the last 4 that divided themselves also divided. So now you have an outer circle with 12 inside. And you're told this in symbolic representations in many origin stories of the religions. The Hebrews have got it very simply explained. You see, Jacob had 12 sons. From one energy came 12. And that 12 became the flower of life. And each one of those 12 energies became the part. And of course, the story then goes on correctly in the Bible. Each one of those 12 circles was rotating and vibrating at different frequencies. And then it says it moved to the surface. And of course it moved along to the surface. And then it reproduced itself again and produced the Berserker Pisces. Actually, I've got some wonderful pictures here for it. Well, I hope I have. It produced the Berserker Pisces. Please look at this carefully. Okay? Also forms at the base. Can you see how from the base we produced 6-sided geometry, which went on to become light? And on the other side you've got 5-sided geometry, which went on to become sound. Remember me telling you that's all there is. Light and sound. And how everything evolved on from that. That's the very first duplication of 2 of the atomic structures at the very smallest level, so infinitesimally small you could never understand it. That's right at the core of the centre of every single atom of existence, and even at the core of light and parts. So infinitesimally small. And also, from the same Berserker Pisces, we've got the square roots of 2, 3 and 5. And geometry came first, numbers came second, and now you've got the basis of all mathematics coming from that very first division. And now everything evolves on and on and on. The Bible takes up the story next, and it says, in the next day of creation. Excuse me, change the word day for stage. And at the end of 7 stages, you produce the flower of life and the egg of life, which you're told in the Drumvallo Melchizedek boots. But you've got to remember how small it is. And then, what happens? It creates more. You keep duplicating. This is very important for energy. Because everyone will tell you that in a square inch, there's enough energy to run the world. But how do they get it out? Okay, you're all right. How do they get it out of that square? Well, here's your answer. Every single one of the spheres keeps duplicating all the time. And each duplication duplicates. Until you've got an enormous ball of billions and billions of spheres rotating. But it's probably the size of a pinpoint. But it's an enormous ball in its reality. And they're continuously duplicating. And then all of a sudden, they create a bigger ball. They all start to vibrate together, which produces a membrane again, bigger around it. And within that membrane, it projects itself out on 3 axes. Come on, you've seen this. North, south, east and west. And then this ball can then travel along the balls. And it's created parameters. You can go to this distance. It's no longer moving. It's set a space to be. And it can go to that end and then go back to the other end and back. Then back and up and down and back until it did that for billions of years. So it had somewhere to go and somewhere to come from. So having done all that, it suddenly realised that it could project itself at an angle. All the time, every single one of these spheres is duplicating itself. And they're duplicating. So instead of a thin row, it becomes a thicker row. And then it projects outwards from one end and it suddenly touches one of the others and creates a triangle. So instead of going back and 2, it can go around. Instantly, it turns all the other triangles and produces an octahedron. And it creates somewhere to go. It's created north, south, east and west. It's created up and down. And it's within the contact. And then after a while, it suddenly realises it can travel all this. And then it starts to rotate. As it rotates, it leaves a stream of spheres behind it, which of course are only thought patterns at that time. And of course, as it rotates, it returns and it creates a circle. Having created a circle, it then turns in all directions and creates a ball. Where in the centre of the ball, there's only the 3 axes. So it's a massive great sphere, but it's still less than a billionth of a pinhead. And then, inside it, then inside it, it goes and it starts to rotate. It goes to the pole, the bulk of it. And it projects upwards in straight lines. And it tries to keep the same numbers together. And it creates a tetrahedron inside the sphere. And then it goes to the other pole and creates another tetrahedron. And now you have the core of energy, which is the Star of David inside the centre of a sphere. And that's the God particle. But it's already mostly hollow. So having created all that, it then went on to create the other platonic solids in the sphere. All the way round and in every intricate pattern. So now you've got a ball, a sphere, with all the platonic solids in it. And what does it do? It recreates itself again. And then it suddenly realises that it's got all of the understanding in that sphere. And of course, in the meantime, this sphere, original sphere it's making, is now duplicating itself and it's becoming thicker and thicker in every way. And then something started to tick on my mind, and it was Einstein's comment, and he said, E equals mc squared. And I thought about it, and I thought, yes, but not in any other dimension, only in this one. And if E equals mc squared, you have to lose matter to gain energy. And then instantly I thought of an electric motor. And I thought of the armature of an electric motor, which has coils wrapped around it, and it runs forever and produces unlimited amounts of power with a magnetic field. So after a period of time, shouldn't that magnetic core deteriorate as matter turns into energy? It doesn't though, does it? The generators that have been running for 200 years, they have not deteriorated. So E equals mc squared is wrong. Matter isn't all energy, unless something else at play. So we're going back again to the rotating large orb with all the platonic solids in it. All the time, all the lines that's inside are crisscrossing with each other. And now your 2 tetrahedrons in the middle are becoming more solid. And all the time they're duplicating each other. We know that when you rotate anything, that streams of energy permeate through the outer frame at 19.47. I showed you this yesterday. The key to unlock light is 19.47. So in this sphere rotating, right, if you speed up the rotation, the new created duplicated cells, by forcing out, travel along the tetrahedron and penetrate out at 19.47. And that's your unlimited supply of energy in everything. The speed of rotation determines the amount of light that comes out. And then you start to see it. Now you can all start working on that.
Thank you very, very much, David.
I've taken it. Thank you.
Thank you. We are very excited to have David too. We've got an outstanding list of speakers. David is one of them. He will be talking about alternative energy devices and how basically they've been suppressed by big corporations. I will leave him to tell you the rest. I'll take it over to you. Big round of applause for David, please.
Good evening, everyone. It's a wonderful pleasure to be able to speak to you. I'm sorry that Greg has had his problems, and I've just seen it on the computer here, because when we put my actual presentation on, which was all ready, it was all blocked up and we couldn't immediately access it. So now I'd like to talk to you about some of the things that I've been involved in. And I'd like to break it into two sections. And the first thing I'd like to talk to you about is what's really going on. But you're all aware of that. So I don't want to go too basic in the understandings. But first of all, I'd like to thank everybody. Is it working? No. Right. Good evening, everyone. I wish to thank the organisers for putting on this wonderfully enlightened event, and for you for supporting and attending. There is just not enough time to explain the workings and wonders of the universe in the time allotted. Also, to be able to understand the most advanced ideas, we have to be sure we fully understand the very basics of existence. So I'll begin by going over some of the core of knowledge we should know that forms the platform on which we all build our ideas of creation of all that is. Most people in here break into two categories. We're either nuts and bolts people, who consider the second category to be woo-woo and go-go land, and the go-go land are woo-woo people who really are more advanced mentally and consciously than the nuts and bolts people. Ooh, straight away you're saying, come on, we know more, nuts and bolts. Nuts and bolts are people who want to understand the realities that's coming from it. So, when you look in detail at what nuts and bolts people are, they're the ones who want everything that's scientific. They want it proven. They want it solid there in front of them. So they can hear it, they can understand it, and they can feel it. And as most scientists, they want to reproduce it to occur again, to have proof. So a nuts and bolts person interlinks to what's going on in the physical and spiritual side, but ignoring the higher levels of spirit and coming down to, as I say, the nuts and bolts. So if you can't feel it, see it, touch it, and understand it, it doesn't exist. In the more, how can I put it, the more gentle people, the spiritually orientated ones, they're the ones who are prepared to accept things, not just on the face value, but to feel things with their heart and their other dimensions of existence. It's them that have a better understanding. And on the nuts and bolts, we break into the two categories. The nuts and bolts ones, what do they want? Basically, they want the proof that we're not alone, that aliens exist. They're looking for that. They have their understanding that follows it through. So they're waiting to meet or understand aliens. And at the heart of it, they want the same thing we all want. They want a better world, because you now know what's going on in the world. So you want to understand we have a more fair, equal society. And on the other side, you've got the spiritual ones, the la-la land ones, that talk to angels and talk to gods. Well, I'd like a little test in the audience now. I would like all of those, please have the courage. We're not going to record you or tell you one. Can all those who've seen a UFO, seen a ghost, felt a presence, had a deja vu, or something that isn't a nuts and bolts item that exists, would you put your hands up in the audience, all of those who confirm to that? Wonderful. That's about 50% of the audience. So how can nuts and boltsers refuse to accept the information that half the world is feeling? And today I can tell you that in a more diverse audience, you get a higher ratio, something like 65 to 70% of the people have had these experiences. So when you say that aspect is, you're throwing away 70% of all the experiences of the people on the planet. So we have to look greater, and we have to stop trying to divide ourselves into nuts and bolts and woo-woo land. And the more we talk about that, those people who are nuts and boltsers, the more you divide it, the more you separate it. And so we go on to the other side, the spiritual ones, who talk to angels, gods, advanced beings, even Auntie Lel and Uncle Fred. Those people, what do they want out of life? They want a better world, a more equal world. They want a better balanced world. They also want to take a share in it, which of course, isn't that what we all want? Whether we're nuts and bolts or spiritual people? I ask you to think that very carefully. As I've gone through that, we don't need that one. We'll try this one. I'm only just learning it. Are we alone? Is there anybody in this room that thinks that the human being is the only intelligent species on the planet? There's only one person who says yes. There always has to be one. That's good, because 99.99% of you are aware that we're not alone. Right? Now, I've been very fortunate. I've looked at many things, and I've understood many things along the lines. Okay? This intrigued us for a long time. Right? So let's clear our minds of dogma, religion, what you've already been known. The Masons have a good card on this. It's called the third tracing board. And you're born again. We put you in a coffin and represent you as dying. And then you're born again with a new mind and new thought patterns. So then they can program you to what they want you to be programmed. Throughout the world, nearly every civilization has created their own creation story. I've studied many of them, so have a lot of you. And the common theme that runs through the majority of them is that this planet has been visited by angels, archangels, gods, demigods, reptilians and other beings. And we're told, right, that Thoth taught us our writing. The gods from South America taught us agriculture. The Hebrews taught us commandments. So why do we get this understanding that all of this information comes from all of these different people from all over the world? And their common level is. So God, an understanding of God, has always been with us. So where did they get this from? The name of our planet that we walk on has got a different religious context from every religion. Are you aware that we call this planet Gaia, Shekinah, Shakti, Isis? Does anybody know what the Egyptians called the planet? Isis. So what does the Christian hierarchy call it? Do you know? It's Mother Mary. And all of a sudden, just the knowledge of what they call the planet should change a lot of religious belief systems. What do the scientists call it? Terra. Terra firma. makes us terrestrial beings because we were born on the planet. So by pure common sense and logic, if you weren't born on the planet, you're an extraterrestrial. And that comes to a point. I've had this argument with many religious people, and none of them have been able to disagree with it. You see, all these angels and gods all came down to the earth in fiery chariots, in wings, right, that settled on the planet. And of course, all these angels that came down to help us, where did they come from? They came from heaven. Is heaven on the earth at the present time? No. Heaven's up there, where the angels come from. As a matter of fact, where do the aliens come from? Up there. So I'm now going to tell you that there is no difference between gods, angels, and aliens. They're all extraterrestrials to this planet. In the past, any being that came and communicated with the controlling elements on the planet, the religions, the secret societies, the secret governments, and the governments, if the beings who came down agreed to what they were teaching and talking, they were angels. If they didn't, they were demons and fellows. And then we start to see a different picture. So our understanding changes with that sheer bit of knowledge. And of course we go on to levels. What we do to each other, we do to ourselves. We have not inherited this planet from our parents, but borrowed it from our children. The ETs are just like us and all the other physical life forms on the planet and in the universe. They are biological computers, housing the energy of the soul, which is a part of all that is, or the source of the universe. The same energy which drives and inhabits us all. For we are all this one energy within us, experiencing life on the planet of duality and emotions. Our lifetime is but a blink of an eye in the scale of the cosmos. We are in the fullness of our time beings, immortal and indestructible essences of our consciousness. Only the physical body dies, which is not the real us. We are a part of the energy of all that is. And then we start to look at the evidence that's all around you. You all, I hope all of you, have looked into your history, because I'm going to tell you that history is a lie. The archaeology of the stones doesn't match the stories. I don't think I need to talk to you about the stone blocks at Baalbek, beyond our capability of moving over uneven ground today. And that's only a small amount, because now we've got blocks of stone in Russia that weigh 9,000 tons. How did they move them? And of course in South America, we've got Pina Punta. And there, they've got thousands of blocks of stone that weigh 2,000 to 2,500 tons. And do you know what they are? They're a Lego set to build a house. Well, they've been there for thousands of years. And all of a sudden, that evidence is available for everyone. So we need to go back to the basics. And the basics are this. We have been told by our scientists, our governments, our religions, and our teachers and our parents that we have evolved from an African ape approximately 400,000 years ago, which then moved across the land, became hunter-gatherers, created a subspecies called Neanderthal man, which then died out. And we were the resultant being from that. And in our first civilization, which the scientists tell us is in 8,000 BC, we then built Sumeria in 4,000 BC, and the Egyptians turned up at 3,000 BC. And that is the understanding that we've all got. Prior to coming out as an African ape, we evolved out of the ocean as an ant-like being, a fish-like being, which grew legs and became a reptilian. What an absolute load of tosh. It doesn't take 5 seconds of investigation for me to be able to break every one of those parts of the stories. But you've already done it yourself. Right? You've done it many, many times. One of the worst of the lies that I found out, I read a book a long time ago by a man named Eric von Daniken. I'm sure most of you have done as well. Chariots of the Gods. And on it was a plate. And this plate is in the Temple of Abydos, which we'll look at in depth later. And on the plate was what appeared to be hieroglyphics that showed a tank and a helicopter. And it's supposed to have been done in 2100 BC. So I looked at it and laughed. And then by sheer coincidence, I was walking down a library wall and a book fell off the shelf. And there was the same picture. Only the book was written in 1932. And one thing became obvious, that the temple was dug up in 1914, and the plate was supposed to be taking the first photographs in 1914. And I was totally stunned to see this book was written in 1932. Well, one thing's for certain, they didn't have helicopters in 1932. So now my interest is woken up. So I jumped on a plane and I went to Abydos to find the plate. And over there I was very fortunate, totally guided, to meet the advanced of all Egyptologists, Abdul Hakim Awayan. And I know some of you know him. And I became a great friend with him. And on 3 main occasions I travelled the full length and breadth of Egypt with him, filming every ancient monument as we went through working out what everything was. And I was totally stunned. And of course, teachings that come together hit us hard. Today, even today, every single school, university and technical college in the world teaches that pyramids are tombs for pharaohs. You know this. So why have they stopped teaching it? Because I've been teaching all the top people for years and showing exactly what they are. So we've heard many stories of what pyramids are. I'm not going to go too deep at this point, but I will go into later. So I'm going to tell you that the pyramids are like all the ancient monuments, particularly the ones in Egypt, where all the temples are universities. Today you can't enter a temple, or so, I'll rephrase it, you can't go to a university unless you've got a basic knowledge of life. You've got to be able to read and write. The Egyptians couldn't do that. So they put a doorway in front of every single Egyptian temple. And the doorway is always the same. It stands 22 feet high by 7 feet wide, which is the universal mathematical constant of pi. And if the people couldn't explain to the priest who stood by the side of the door what the doorway meant, they were not allowed to enter the temple because they weren't knowledgeable enough to appreciate what was inside. Did you know that 74% of our Masonic lodges today in this country have doorways which are 22 by 7? And the Israeli synagogues, 45% of those have 22 by 7 doors, and those that don't have the Star of David, which I'm going to tell you now is the core of energy. Okay, that is another entrance point. So it takes us to that level. So we all say, well, what's a pyramid for? And that's going to be a very difficult one to explain. So I've decided to cut it down to the minimum amount of knowledge. They're books in stone, amongst other things. They're also energy transdimensionalized. They draw the energy from the universe, take it into the ground. Under all of the pyramids, you'll find there are aquifers, water systems, and they charge the energy up, right, with the positive energy of the solar system and the universe, which allows it then to travel the ley lines, which puts the energy into growing all the food and all the realities that's on the planet. That's very important. But they're structurally based. And the easiest way to explain what a pyramid was to say, I'd like to make, with you ladies and gentlemen, a time capsule. But instead of lasting it for 50 years, like we make today, I'd like one to last for 500,000 years. And the material we're going to make it out of is the one that's most prevalent, that stays the same, which is stone. And on a planet that moves with volcanoes and earthquakes, we want something that's structurally sound. And as I'll explain later, is there are no straight lines and no flat surfaces. We need to make it of a straight-edged aspect. And we're going to put in it intelligence. So we need something with a big base and a small top. So the perfect shape that moves with the planet would be a pyramid. And the pyramids were then first contained the knowledge of the workings of the universe. And of course, when everything goes back, you'll find a big, very big, important information. I'll give some of the most parts now, some of the most interesting of all. The Great Pyramid contains volumetric awareness. Has anybody heard that? That means if everything's made, and everything is made, they had to keep a ruler somewhere. A list of laters, measures, volumes, volumetric awareness. And the Great Pyramid contains what the entire solar system and our universe is made from, the measurements. When I'm travelling from here back home, what's the measurement we use? Miles. So where does the mile come from? Okay, we'll look. Pardon? The mile comes and is encoded in the base of the Great Pyramid. You see, the side of the Great Pyramid is not flat. It kinks by half a degree. And from the centre to the outside is 220 Egyptian cubits, which is also the same as 220 megalithic yards. Now, what measurement do we have in Old English that's 220 in length? Exactly. And how many sides then has the Great Pyramid got? 8. Can you tell me what 8 times 220 is? 1,760 yards in a mile. And that's just the beginning. Because when you understand how everything works, it interlinks it. And of course, there are 216 layers of stone in the Great Pyramid. How do you get 216? What a magnificent number you need to know. You see, when you multiply 6 by 6 by 6, you get 216. That's the number of layers of stone in the Great Pyramid. It's also one of the most important things, right? Because also, on the understanding in the Great Pyramid, I can give you now, from the Great Pyramid, having decoded quite a lot of it, and a lot of other people have done the same, I can give you the diameter, the rotation, and the distance from the sun of nearly every planet in this solar system. Exactly. So we have recorded in the ancient monuments, when we decode them properly, the full workings of the universe. And we're beginning to do that. So who built ancient monuments with all the true workings of the universe? The ones that guide you. And of course, now you're going to look totally different at many of the monuments. I'd like to go back again to the next level. You can only make the judgments of life when you've got the full picture. Well, that went backwards. No. Okay, we'll go backwards. I need to go back. Can some of you tell me how to take this back a slide? Yeah, I want to go backwards.
You've got backwards and forwards.
Ah.
That's backwards. Bring the mouse over here. Bring it over here. Look there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Backwards. I made a statement earlier on. There are no straight edges and no straight lines, and there are no flat surfaces. Are you aware of that? This isn't a flat surface. It's what your mind perceives. If you was to look at that with the highest scale microscope you could get, you'd find there are only spheres. And they're arranged in such ways that a flat surface looks like a mountain range when you look from the side. And straight lines are bubbles of it coming along all the way along the sides. So there are no straight lines, flat surfaces. What there are, right, without doubt, are only spheres, which are dots with a membrane which has been created by the division of the dot within the centre of the dot. As here. Take away the red in that and put the dot in the middle, and then see that dot divide into two, which forms the two circles, which then twist through each other. And as they twist through each other, the vibration, it creates a resistance in the middle, which creates a vibration. And that then produces an electromagnetic field, which spreads out and around the entire dot in the centre. That's all there is. There's nothing else. And that's at the very core of the very centre of every atomic and subatomic particle, and extends outwards, forever up and forever down. A dot within a circle. If you want to see some other dots, there's a few dots. That's in the atmosphere. And there are many levels. And now we come to a real simple truth. You're all familiar, of course, with the structure of the subatomic particle and the atomic particle. Right? It has a nucleus. And around it has protons, neutrons. And there are electrons which buzz around and occasionally go from one atom to another and join them together. You're familiar with the structure of a solar system. The solar system has a sun in the middle, or the nucleus, and close to it are 4 hard rock planets, which are the protons. And of course, around that you've got the gas giants. Why do we differentiate between a hard rock planet and a gas giant? Because a gas giant is not the same structure as a hard rock planet. And the gas giants, of course, are the neutrons. And then flying around our solar system we have asteroids, right? And other planets that come in and go out of this solar system to other planets and other solar systems, one of which is called Nibiru. And that planet joins us to the 2 planets in Sirius, Sirius A and Sirius B. And we are a triplanetary system, and we are joined together. And every 3,657 years, that's funny, multiply 10 years and what do you get? Travels all the way to Sirius A and B and then back to the Earth through our solar system and goes back again. And on that planet live the Anunnaki. You have all been told that the Anunnaki are the bad guys. Guess who made the ancient monuments, the temples in Egypt, for you to find out and knowledge and decode them? So, let's open your mind up to this. If you want to know how big the universe is, every grain of sand in every part of everything that exists contains a minimum of 10,000 solar systems. And that should change all your ideas and all your thoughts of creation. What we are, how it extends. And you know it goes forever down and forever up. Now I'm going to join together the spiritual and the nuts and bolts. You see, you've all heard of Blavatsky and Boyle. I'm sure some of you have read their works and understand it. Who do you think gave the scientists and the religions the atomic structure? Scientists never discovered it. In fact, they're still miles behind. It was channeled by Boyle and Blavatsky. And of course, for their creating this subatomic aspect, this atomic aspect, destroyed the belief systems by the religions of God. Right? And of course, that's why they were castigated by both of the religions, that they were the most evil people on the planet, because they destroyed the God understanding that the Christians and other religions were passing out. And thank you, scientists. What did they do? They took it and said, thank you very much, we've invented this. That's where they got it from. So the information of the higher levels of consciousness is coming through now to our channelers and those that have activated more of the brains, which is very important. Okay? So you now know the size of the universe. It's bigger than any of you could ever imagine. And I tell you that those minute solar systems in every atomic structure have minute planets on it. And on those planets they've got incredibly small beings who keep saying, are we alone? And it ranges from the lowest to the highest. And if you don't think so, look at your own solar system, which is a dot in a membrane. And that dot in a membrane holds it all together. And within that membrane is all the understandings. Right? And that membrane holds all of our parts, all the other planets in the solar system. So back to another simple things we all don't know, or we should know. Scientists tell us that everything which exists is a vibration. You must have heard that. And that vibration manifests in only one thing, energy. That energy manifests in two things and two things only, light and sound. So I'm going to tell you now that everything that exists is only light and sound. Now we are limited conscious beings. We're limited to 5 senses, and we're limited within our scope to those 5 senses. Feel, see, touch, understanding, hearing, smell and taste. And those 5 senses is everything that exists. Because all that there is that you understand, all that your brain is tuned into, is those 5 senses. There's nothing else. Now we are incredibly limited in the scope of those 5 senses. And of course, we think we know it all and we understand it all. Those 5 senses, right, produce a different amount of energy and a different understanding. Right. Did you know your brainwave activity is only 8 to 18%? Should we say 10% average? When your brain's been switched off, you've been deprogrammed. So you can't see into the worlds around you. Like the clairvoyants, the psychics, the mediums, the channelers, they can. They can because they've activated more of their mind by the activation of the pituitary gland, which produces the energies that lift it up. The top level, can you please look at that? That's what the scientists tell you exist. Do you know what we see? Can you see the gap in the middle? 3%. So right now, in the best sunlight outside, you'll only see 3% of the light that exists. Now we're in here. If we turned all the lights out, you'd disappear unless you speak. Or if I gave you ultraviolet or infrared glasses, you would see into those worlds around you that exist in the same space at the same time at different frequencies. And of course, that's a quiet understanding. And in the bottom, you've got the sound radiation levels. You only hear 4% of the sound that we know exists. Because you know dolphins and bats can hear what you can't hear. So we're limited in conscious to the 5 senses, and they're very limited indeed to the scope. Okay. We've been deactivated. So what's the rest of your brain's capacity for if you switched it on? Anyone got any ideas? It's called junk DNA, right? Of which 84% is what's made. So if you activated more of your brain than the 8 to 18%, what would you be able to hear, see, feel and do that you can't do now? Well, there's a few of you in here that can do it. You start to see into the worlds around you. And you hear and see other existences at finer vibrations. So that brings us to the understanding of dimensions. I've gone backwards. We're limited conscious beings, we're understanding, and we're limited. So what's the rest of your capacity for now? You know, don't you? So I'm going to say that the nuts and bolts people are just beginning on the spiritual path of advanced consciousness. And you have to have proof to you that there are all the things that you know is wrong before you're then able to start to look into the higher levels of consciousness that we all have. This is the Kabbalah on the left-hand side. This is your guide plan for your journey of life on the planet. You arrive in the me at the bottom, and your target is to reach to the crown chakra. There's your chakras down the middle. And of course, it takes, are you ready, 200 lifetimes. Because you don't do it in one go. You start off at the me. Well, what does me mean? Because your chakras not only mean the levels, well, this is your guide plan to life. This is taught only by the Jewish hierarchy of the church, who are over at least 40 years of age. To the males, it's not taught to the females. And of course, they're not allowed to teach it to anyone outside. And this is your guide plan on life. And you're the centre being that travels up the middle, quite often called the initiate. And on the left-hand side, you're guided by the dark elements or the negative. And on the right-hand side, you're guided by the column of light to the right. Does anybody notice a recognition to the teaching boards of the Masons? In the middle, you're the initiate on the planet. On the left-hand side, you've got Boys, and on the right-hand side, you've got Joachim. They're teaching you the same thing. And of course, this is raising your consciousness from your crown chakra, your root chakra between your legs, to your crown, up your backbone. And that's why they have 33 crafts, because they represent the 33 backbones in your body. So they're teaching you the same thing, but differently. You arrive in the me, and you'll live the first time of your lifetime, and you'll only get so far, and then you'll die, and you'll reincarnate again and start again at the me. But the second and third and the fourth times you come, you've been on that earth a bit longer, and you'll raise your vibrations higher. So your root chakra represents me. What's a baby like when it's first on the planet? Only thinks of one thing, doesn't it? Me. Food, cleaning, being looked after, being prepared for. How many people are stuck in the me in this room who only think of themselves and nothing else? It's only when you master the me and you understand what you are, and you've got enough security, food, money, and understanding to raise your consciousness up to the next level, you then enter the second chakra, or the sacral chakra. And this has another meaning. This has a meaning called myself. You're now looking at yourself from the outside. And you realise you're a bigger being than just a me. You realise you have consciousness. And you're part of others. And you're a bigger being. And this second chakra introduces you to your desires. So you've arrived on the planet, you've mastered life on the earth, you've got enough money, food and security, and now you start wondering about what you are and you're looking outside. Now you wonder why Bush and Blair keep blowing after people back to the state where they're still having to find enough food and security to live together, stopping them advancing their consciousness. When you've reached the myself, it's your desires. I'll ask you the question here, how many people in this room have conquered their desires? That's an easy one, isn't it? No, it's incredibly hard. I doubt very much if 3 people have completely conquered your desires. Because I'm going to tell you something now, very simple. If you don't conquer your desires, they'll conquer you. If you don't think so, ask what a drug addict will do for his next fix. And the answer is anything. And if you're fixed on power and wealth, what will you do? Well, you might even commit genocide to entire nations. Ask the people of Iraq and Afghanistan, or Bush and Blair. So these lower level conscious beings stay in the myself till you master it. And then when you master the myself and you master your desires, then you're not controllable here. Because I've got what you want, you'll do what I say if you want it. But if you don't need what I've got, then I can't control you anymore. So when you're in charge of your desires, you're a far more evolved and better human being than you were before. And then you raise your vibration again. And this time you come into duality. And from the orange chakra, you move to either left or right. You go to male or female. And you live in duality, the understanding of the two. And here you're given the lessons for you to learn. Discernment. And I've listened to most of you and the other speakers the last day. And you're learning discernment, aren't you? You no longer believe what your governments, your religions, your teachers, and even your parents tell you until you've checked out the evidence. So you know what you're doing now in this level? You're becoming the I am. And you have got your own understanding. And you've drawn that level into you. You're the I am that I am. And you have taken your power back. So I'd like to ask all the gentlemen here. The Queen's going to have a war next week and wants you to go and fight in the Ukraine for her. Would you put your hands up, those that will go? God, you've learnt it, haven't you? Okay. Isn't it lovely to see what happened in Ukraine when the Russians invaded the Ukraine and they didn't shoot each other? Wonderful. And then we realise what's going on and we see that level. So now you come to your control of your power. Have you taken your power back? You take your power back and you live life to what you know is right. And right now you're all finding out what is right. And what you've been told is a load of rubbish. So, we've entered this. This is the Kabbalah, the tree of life. It's also the forbidden tree from the story of Adam and Eve, which is very intriguing. We'll go that into a bit later. It's also the Masonic Kabbalah and the guide to life. So you arrive at the bottom and you need to leave at the top. So now we're talking of dimensions. And we've explained to you that we can only see, right, in a small amount. And I wrote the book Children of the Stars, which is very nice because I started talking about dimensions. And the night I actually talked about it and we filmed it to go in the book, that appeared. Can you understand it? From the light of the sun came out 12 different vibrations at 12 different frequencies, which created the 12 bodies, the 12 dimensions of existence. Perfect proof in a crop circle. The very night that we published it. It's one of many that's come. So there are 12 dimensions. I'm going to show you something now no one else has ever seen in the world yet. Okay. There's the 12 dimensions on the right-hand side. Can you see them? All the way up from the bottom. The lowest part is the body. And that's up to your throat. There's a veil then at the throat which you can't see above. And then you've got the divine triad, then another veil, and then you've got the spiritual levels above it. So mind, body, spirit is correct. Only being taught to 3 bodies, it's now 12. And then you've got the final veil at the top, which separates what you think has been told is an evil aspect, the all-seeing eye. The all-seeing eye is your higher self. And that's attached to the God consciousness of all there is. And that's your own self looking at yourself. So when you close your eyes and you see an eye looking at you, it's yourself. And you're all part of that. It's not an evil or a negative element which has been turned that way. It's how the universe works. There is only light and sound. Okay? The light starts at the red at the bottom. Can you see that? And is the very hardest at the base. That's inert material with no life in it. And then it ranges up and the light dissipates to less and less and less till you reach the 11th level, where the last vestiges of light in very minute amounts are held. And of course you've got the overall at the top, which is pure sound, which then vibrates all the way down to the 2nd level. The base one is awareness to a dot. That's inert material, which is an atomic structure that doesn't grow, doesn't change, doesn't alter. We can talk about like water, glass, metals, stone, with no life in it. But it has to have light in it to exist. And then the next level is awareness to a line. And this is where we go to the story of Adam and Eve, which is a perfectly good example of reality. And when they take the bite or the fruit from the tree of life, which is the Kabbalah on the left, what was the fruit of the tree of the Kabbalah? The apple. When you slice the apple one way, it shows you all the magnetic fields that surround the dot in the middle of the light aspect of it. Perfectly. And that's what emanates, very conscious, please listen to this, from the base of the sun. A stream of energy that comes down from the bottom of the sun and folds all the way round and goes and encompasses the entire solar system, where it comes out as positive energy. As it's going round, it starts to change. And when it reaches the top and it goes back into the sun, it's negative energy. That creates a band in the middle, all the way round, of balanced energy. And in that band floats the other 11 planets in the solar system, balancing their own magnetic north and south, floating in that band of vibration. You all understand that? Right? So this on like a disc, floating in the middle, and they're all floating between the sun's consciousnesses. That band we call all the way round, we call it the event horizon. Have you heard of that? That's what the scientists call it. And that event horizon holds in it all the other magnetic fields. You see, not only does the sun emanate from its south pole, but every single planet in this solar system ejects out of its south pole a positive energy, which falls on the inside all the way round, the inside of the membrane of the sun, and back into the north pole of their own planet. So right now, you are all being bathed in 12 magnetic fields. All of them. That creates the dimensions of existence for the hologram of light which we are to sit on. Does everybody understand that? So right now you're bathed in 12 different frequencies. Remember, there are only vibrations. And every one of our planets vibrates. And when they've got moons attached to it, it gives them a different vibration. So each of the vibrations of the solar system vibrate through you. And that gives you higher and lower levels of vibration. This is a real physical thing. And in time we'll be able to measure it. But right now a lot of people can actually see it. The dimensions, as I explained earlier on, they vibrate to the different planets. I'm sure a lot of you have studied chakras and know they have the same vibration as the planets. So now you know where it comes from, and now you know why. As you go up the levels, you'll find they've got different aspects. Density 1 provides the matter and energy for the creation of atoms and molecules. Dimension, right, and that's awareness to a dot that never grows. Dimension 2, awareness to a line, biological matter, development of a group or species identity, no self-awareness or ego. That's why when you slice the apple the other way, what have you got in it? A 5-pointed star. There are only 2 vibration frequencies, and the 2 geometries come. The 6-pointed star produces light, and 5-pointed star produces sound. And the sound is then incorporated in the living material, in the pear, the apple, and every other living aspect, and puts life into an inert material. And then you come to the 3rd level. This is the level of volumetric awareness. This is what the Great Pyramid contains. All the measurements that created all of the universe. I will explain that later on in much more advanced. Okay. So now we're understanding that there are 12 levels, 12 dimensions in this universe now at this time. The apple on the left produces the magnetic fields of matter or light, and the apple on the right produces the core of energy, showing the pip sections, showing the Earth's magnetic field that goes it round. And of course we have the story. In the Garden of Eden, God told them not to take a bite of the fruit of a certain tree. And Eve tempted Adam, and they did. They were evicted from the Garden of Eden. Well, can you tell me where the Garden of Eden is, everybody, now? No. It's the entire planet. You're in the Garden of Eden. And who's going to be evicted soon? All of us. We're all going to raise our vibrations in ascension. Your poetry guy really knows what he's talking about. It was lovely to hear him saying that and having that knowledge that's inside it. So he knows an awful lot more than he's passing on. But he's trying to pass it on in a way that you can understand. The story has now been decoded, and we realise that we now know more of the workings of the universe regarding negative and positive, and are approaching the levels of the creator gods. And we are about to be released into the universe as we become creator gods ourselves, to join Osiris in the heavens as the consciousness of a star. So let's go into more of this. Okay? How long do we want?
I think 20 minutes.
Oh, that's not a problem. Okay.
Oh, we got a bit more. No, we got probably half an hour.
Okay, right. Okay. So, I made a statement earlier on, everything's made. Okay? If everything's made, you know where the measure is, don't you? It's the Great Pyramid. And of course, if there's only light and sound, right, if you have the keys to unlock light and sound, it would be much easier, wouldn't it, to work out your pathways through life. Well, the key to unlock sound is 666. And the key to unlock light is 19.47. So where did we get them from? You might be surprised. We're going into La La Land. We got them from a crop circle. And the crop circles are created by the higher dimensional beings to assist us to decode the ancient monuments. Now lots of people say you can't decode crop circles. Well, you can. This is a mathematical crop circle. This appeared beneath Silver Hill of all places. Please look at it. On the right-hand side, we're using Old English measurements because that's how the world was created, in multiples of 12. Which is, if you wonder why we went decimal, now you've got a different story. So you wouldn't be able to decode the ancient monuments. The top circle is 67 foot one way, the other way it's 66 foot. So you would assume because of the tramways between that the mean average is 66 foot 6 inches. Now in all mathematical crop circles it's always double encoded. And if you look from the base of the top circle to the bottom one, it's 98 feet. Well, you also add to plus or minus a foot, because quite often the crop's planted 2 foot apart. So that gives you 98 on one side and 66. Well, if you make it 99, it's got a relationship, hasn't it? 66 and 99 is 2/3 or 0.666, right, which shows you that understanding. And then we've shown to the left-hand side, there's an angle. You see, we've already used imperial measurements. We've also used percentages and fractions. So now we've shown there's an angle. That angle is actually a 3, 4, 5 Pythagorean triangle. So we're also being told to work in Pythagorean mathematics. And it's attached to the top circle by the tangent from the centre of the small circle and creates the angle 19.47. And when you fold it over, it then creates it again. And then we've got 2 smaller circles. And it's very interesting because the 2 smaller circles give you the same information. When you mark the tangent out, it produces 19.47. And the small circle is 1/3 the volume of the top, or 0.666. So now we've got an understanding. You've been told that 666 is the number of the devil. Well, the human race is the devil then, because the average human being stands 6 foot tall. Fingertip to fingertip, 6 foot. Front to back, 6 foot. 6 times 6 times is 6 is 216. That's the number of bones you've got in your body, average. We made of 2/3 water, which is 0.666. We made of the carbon atom, 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons. So therefore we are the beast from the Bible. But only when we live in the bottom sections. And we haven't gone past me, myself, and I. And when we evolve our consciousness into the higher levels, we no longer, we've become a better being. Because now we know what's going on. We've controlled our desires. We take the information in and control it. And now we reach the point. Do you accept responsibility for what you say, think and do? How many in the audience do that? I hope you all do. Because that's when you grow up. That's when you take responsibility. Because if you turn out and if I ask you that question and you say to me, God, I'll say, well, you're giving your power away to God, who is a non-existent being. And then you start to see a different picture. You see, you've evolved. You've come to this planet to evolve, to raise your consciousness from your root to your crown chakra, and you go through all of the many, many aspects. It's at this point we say, well, what's 19.47, and where's it come from? Did you know on every single planet in this solar system, at 19.47 is the biggest volcano? The biggest upwelling of energy, which sits from the equator, 19.47, the biggest volcano. On Mars, it's Olympus Mons. In England, it's Mauna Kea, in the Hawaiian Islands, right? It's also on Jupiter. Sorry, it's on Mars, Jupiter, the Earth. It's on all of them. But we can't see the gas giants. And here's where you're lied to. Because the scientists tell you that the red spot on Jupiter is a hurricane and a storm. All our hurricanes and storms stop and start. The red spot on Jupiter has been in the same spot for 9,000 years, according to the Chinese, and I believe them. You see, when you have a volcano in a deep layer of gas, as it rises in a spiral. By the time it breaks the surface, it's a massive whirling spot of the red spot on Jupiter, the grey spot on Uranus, and the black spot on Neptune. And all of a sudden, it's all there for you. And then we come to the odd man out in the solar system, which is Saturn. Now, Saturn spins that fast that it drags the atmosphere round with a core. So instead of rising in a spiral, it stretches out. And by the time it breaks the surface, it's a different coloured line at 19.47 in the north, and the secondary one, at 19.47 in the south. Wow. And that's on every planet, so why haven't you been told? You can check all this out. Everything I'm telling you, you can check out. And then we look at the sun. 97% of sunspots occur in a band between 18 and 22 degrees latitude, north and south of the equator. Because the sun's surface is liquid, it doesn't require a volcano to channel the energy out. So it breaks through in different surface areas. And how does that work out? We soon discovered, with the help of David Percy, John Anthony West, Mark Colotto, Richard Hoagland, if you place a double interlocking tetrahedra in a sphere, that the points always touch at 19.47 degrees latitude, north or south of the equator. Now you know why the Star of David is on the outside of 65% of the Jewish lodges, because the Star of David is the core of energy, at the centre of every atom, subatomic particle, and in the centre of every cosmic body that we know that exists. And as it rotates, it ejects out at 19.47 the energy in the form of volcanoes on everything that we know. And then we start to see a different understanding. Earlier on, I showed you a picture on how to decode crop circles. Tell me what the top circle at the top left-hand side looks like. It's a key. And what's the two small circles underneath it? The key to everything is light and sound. And of course, that pointed, along with them, all pointed to Avebury and Silver Hill. So where'd you go next? Well, we shot off to Avebury and Silver Hill, where we learnt an awful lot. But when this was decoded by some of our top people, you see the difference between the two keys gave us a very important piece of information. It gave us 3 speeds of light. Now, when we talk of the story of Nibiru travelling all the way to Sirius A and B and back in time, the scientists say it's impossible. Right? I'm going to show you this. The speed of light inside our solar system is 186,000 miles per second, which is the only measurement we ever use in miles per second. Do you know what it is in miles per hour? How about 666,666,000? And all of a sudden you see the connections between light and sound everywhere. And you're shown this. And when you exit, or you pass through the sun's membrane, which contains all the other membranes, it's a less dense area. And the speed of light takes a jump 470,000 times faster. And don't tell me you don't know this and you've not seen it. Have you watched Star Trek? You change the frequency of the ship, warp factor 6, and you see it stretch out in light and shoot away at phenomenal speed. So that's what happens to light when it passes through the event horizon into the higher levels. And where did we get Star Trek from, by the way? Do you all know? Do you know it? Gene Roddenberry. So where did he get it from? He sat in a channeling group in America, run by Phyllis Schlemmer. And they were telling you, that group started, by the way, in 1947. And that group still runs today. And in that group is Spielberg and Lucas. And if you think all the science fiction is science fiction, you better start waking up to what you're being shown. You were shown the pictures earlier on of what's being encoded on the sides. Well, a lot of what you think is science fiction is an introduction for us to see what the rest of the universe is like. So this is what's inside every planet. 2 interlocking tetrahedras, which is the Star of David, which is the core of energy in the centre of every single atomic structure, which is the basic components of the God particle. And of course you've got the Solomon's seal, which shows you exactly the same. And of course the Masonic understanding to link it all in. So I've had a few people ask me what we are. Well, your physical body is a computer. It's a biological, genetically engineered computer. And it's there to house the energy of you, the personality, the soul. That's the soul. That's you. It's a sphere. It's called the flower of life. And inside it contains 12 energies. It also contains and holds all the other platonic solids. And the speed of the rotation of the orb determines what consciousness level you're at. And if it goes very slow, it's very hard and produces the cube, the physical world. And as you raise your vibrations, it lifts up into the other dimensions. That's what you are. You're an orb in the throat. Because I've already told you they're only spheres. Range from the smallest to the largest. You as the orb in the centre. And just add this to detail for you. The orb holds within it orbs and orbs and orbs that go down more or less forever. And each orb, in each one of us, you've got 3 to 400,000 billion orbs in your orb. And now we know a little bit more, and we'll see if it drops onto you nicely. You have an orb, and it's got an ejection at 19.47 of energy. So if you're looking at the orb and it's spinning towards you, the energy will reach you quicker than when it's spinning away and creates a pulse. Now you know what the pulsars are in the universe. And of course, if you've got billions of them together and they're all switching on or off, which is how computers count, on or off, 0 and 1. And if you get billions of them, and a lot of them together switch on at the same time, what have they created? Who's into computers? How about a neural pathway, a memory? So your orb is a phenomenal brain. Your brain is not your brain, it's a receiver. And somebody spoke earlier on about this. This is where you are. This is your grand central sun. And you're in the throat as an orb. And your communication goes from your eyes to here, and then back to your orb, and then out to everything else, back through your brain. You don't see what you're looking at. You've already censored the information going into you. If you don't think so, hold the board up to the sun with a hole in it, and watch the image come through reverse and be upside down and back to front. Okay? You're all looking at me through 2 little eyes. Am I upside down and back to front? So the information's been changed. It was sent from your brain to your solar plexus, your mind. And here, you and your guides determine what you will see. And they send the information back to you for you to see it. Has anyone here had a really bad accident and can't remember it? You're protected. If you have a really bad accident where you get crushed and badly damaged, no one can remember it. I had a really bad one once. I worked on the ship canal. The ship was coming into the locks and it couldn't stop its engines and it was going towards the gates. So they threw ropes over the side. I grabbed the rope and stuck it over a bollard, 9-inch rope. Right? And as the ship went forward, it got jammed on the deck. So the rope stretched and snapped. Whipped back, wrapped round my neck, threw me 50 foot down the lock wall, still attached to it. I flipped in the air, hit the floor. Next thing you know, I wake up in hospital. Got a great big nurse's bottom sitting on my face. Had the most vile smell as we put in smelling salts underneath me. And each arm was held down by a doctor and both legs. And I was worried to kill anyone that was around. But I couldn't remember a single thing about it. And I've met so many other people since. You are protected by your guides from the worst aspects of life. So if you're the orb in the throat, you can't get to the orb. Remember the original Kabbalah? You've got the veil. You can't see your orb because it's in the 5th dimension. And when you die, your orb doesn't go anywhere. It just moves to the side. As the physical body dies, and your other 11 bodies, right, still hold the orb. And then it waits around, it judges itself. Because you are judged at the end by the one person you can't lie to, and you know who that is, don't you? Yourself. And you meet Thoth, and he goes through your lifetime, and you decide whether you've done what you came to learn or not. In which case you either reincarnate by your choice or not. So we live forever. You are immortal, indestructible beings. You are not your body. Your body is a very delicate, right, outer container that holds the energy of the soul for life experiences on the planet to evolve to higher levels. And they know it. And your religions know it. Let me just show you a little bit more. So inside the orb are all the platonic solids. And each one rotates at a different speed. So the speed of the orb determines what intelligence level you're at or what vibration level you're at. That's why they want you to raise your vibrations and go into a higher dimension. How do you raise your vibrations? By being happy and doing what you know is right. Because if you live your life to what you know is right, you will lift yourself up into those higher levels. And now we go on to the next one. So all the platonic solids are within every atom of existence and within your orb. Here's an orb, and here's another orb, and next to it's another orb. Here's you, the personality, with the earth, which is Mother Mary, with the sun in the sky, which is Joseph of Arimathea. You are the initiate on the planet. Your G is us. Not me, not one person, but all the initiates on the planet. We're all learning on the planet, Mother Mary, guided by the light of the sun. That's the two most important things to give you life. And when you look at this and you interlink it to it, now let me tell you this about your orb. What a wonderful thing it is. Did you know you can shrink it down to enter a bacteria? Wasn't it Prince Philip who said he wants to return as a bacteria and wipe out the human race? That's Prince Philip's words, is it not? Virus, is that not right? Yeah, of course. Well, guess what else you can do? You can expand your orb bigger and bigger and bigger. And you can take over a complete inert planet. And when the orb sits over the planet, what does it create? All the ley lines are the platonic solids within the orb laid across the planet. And of course, where the points of the platonic solids touch the surface is where all your ancient monuments are. The ones that are in England are very important. Isn't it funny that they all have the word Bury at the end of it? Glastonbury, Avebury, Badbury, Cadbury. Do you know why? Because they laid out to the star signs of the Kabbalah. And of course the word Bury means star. And every single country, you've got the same platonic systems laid across. And the Kabbalists lay across every country, creating the chakras on every part, giving living entities, which are orbs, the ability to control the planets. So Mother Earth is a living, conscious being. and you're killing her. You're poisoning her, you're drowning her, and you're giving her all of the wrong information and you're not taking care of her, you're not telling her you love her, you're not appreciating what you've got for your lives. I don't mean you individually, because you're waking up. We need to change our whole thought patterns, how everything exists. The sun also contains all the platonic solids, which is your guidance from everything. And let's just go to a few more crop circles. You've all seen this one, haven't you? Mm-hmm. Quite an interesting one. That came in response to one we sent out. And the central disc has a message. And that message is, beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe there is good out there. We oppose deception. And do you really think that's written by people that want to control us? They want to show the truth. We oppose deception. They're against what you're being lied to about. And of course, the key to light is 19.47, and there are 59 lines and 33 circles, giving you 19.47. It also gives you 33% of 59 is 19.47, and it's also graphically linked up exactly to the Roswell crash. So before we go on to this, and you all know about this, okay? Too late, it's playing. This is the tablet on the wall of Abydos, which I didn't believe existed, and I went to Abydos and met Hakim. And when we looked at it and we checked through it all, that is what? There's definitely a tank or a submarine style vehicle. But there's definitely, stop it there, I wish I could. There's definitely a helicopter. And that, by the way, is in the middle of a story. Has anyone told you the story it's in the middle of and written? I'm sure they haven't. Because they won't even tell it you when you go to Abydos. But you know the story. It's the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. And the front of the temple of Abydos has Ramesses II, and in his hand he's got the goddess Mat, and he's presenting it to the divine triad, right, of Isis, Osiris and Horus. Well, who's Isis, Osiris and Horus? Should we go back to that other picture? Crown chakra, the sun in the sky, your third eye, Mother Earth, your throat, you, the personality. Where do you think they go? God the Father, the Son, and the Mother, or the Holy Ghost. They know what they don't tell you. That's the divine triad consciousness that your target is to reach. And of course, in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, blows your history away. You know the story goes like this. Angels of the Lord descended in a whirlwind. So I'll ask you a question. If you were in the desert and a whirlwind landed next to you, and it was a helicopter and you'd never seen one before, what would you say it was? A whirlwind. And they told the two people, their spies in the camp, who were known as Lot and his wife, to take shelter in a cave and not to look back. But his wife was disobedient, as most women usually are. I've got to say that tongue in through. Right. And he went outside, didn't she? And for her pains, what happened to her? She was turned into a pillar of salt. Can you tell me what happened to all the people who stood at Hiroshima and Nagasaki? They were vaporised, and all that's left is a pile of white powder, which, by the way, is coarse and just feels like salt. So you're cross-referenced in the Bible. You can't go to Sodom and Gomorrah today, did you know? Because it's military camps. And if you did, all you would see is the glazing of the bricks and structure that's left, that's turned into the destruction. And if you don't think that's right, go to Wuma and Nevada and have a look at the nuclear detonations we've done melting the planet ourselves. Where the bomb's gone off, you've got the destruction area if it's on the ground. And then the heat spreads out so intense it burns every single thing down into the soil until it's down to the rock crystalline structure, which then melts and forms a circle of glass. If it's an airborne burst, right, it just melts the glass, but the central point's always deeper. All across the planet, there are the remains of at least 5 nuclear wars. But if you listen to a PhD telling you it's where a meteorite crashed into the ground and melted it, but we've never found a single meteorite where these destruction areas are. And then we have a much more interesting aspect, and we understand that the nuclear wars were everywhere. The oldest one we can find was 180,000 years ago, in what's known as the First Pyramid Wars. And then there was a war in 11,000 BC, which created the destruction that caused the Great Flood. Then there was one in 5,000 BC in India, and the remains are everywhere. There are 3 massive circles of glass in Bombay alone. And we know of Dwarka and the finding of these other civilizations. So if you wanted to know history, just find the evidence, check it out yourself. We were far more advanced in the past. We blew ourselves up and went backwards in time. That plaque shows you the plates. How many of you have seen the little models in gold, silver and platinum coming out of the tombs all over South America? Our scientists keep telling us the birds and insects. They've all got vertical tail fins, and we've been turned into models that fly. And that's because they don't want you to know that they had planes in those days. But I'm sure you've read the Indian stories about Brahmanas. Well, when they dropped the bombs on the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, the radiation spread out in a tremendous area and killed all the life and all the understanding. And all the people that were there, right, that survived, took to their aircraft and flew to the New World, where they scraped the deserts clear, where it was easy to build the runways in the Nazca Plains. And then they became the Aztecs, the Mayas, the Incas and the Toltecs, which our scientists can't tell you where they came from, but you know. And because it was a one-way flight and they had no facilities in North America to refuel, they couldn't return. And the civilization then returned to a more Stone Age type. And what happened in the deserts in the Middle East? Well, that turned from the Garden of Eden at that date into deserts. And of course, all the cities got covered. Did they take their stone tablets, the cuneiform tablets, to the New World? No, they left them behind. And because of the radiation, nobody interfered with them. The first person to find them was Petrie. He brought a few back. Well, then Saddam Hussein found Nebuchadnezzar's library and started offering them out to the entire world, to any academical institution that could decode them and then send them back to him. 50,000+ of them went out. So can you tell me what the American troops did when they first moved into Afghanistan, into Kabul? They took all the tablets that were out, over 1.5 million of them, laid them in the road, rode over them with road rollers and used them as for filling sort of potholes. So now, well, it was too late, because we've now got a lot of the true stories of the early parts of creation. There's so much I want to talk to you about, but are we running out of time? 5 minutes, okay. I'm going to go on to this one. I'm going back to that helicopter, because there's a lot more in that than you're told. If it will work, that's gone back. So please look carefully and let's decode it for you properly. Okay? Remember, it's in the middle of the story, and the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. Now you've got the helicopter that went to tell Lot and his wife, and on the right-hand side you've got a submarine. There we go. And beneath it you've got a flying vehicle with a vertical tail fin. Remember, these had precious stones in that had been chipped out. And underneath it here, many people said that's a land speeder. It's not. That's the Egyptian word for power. But that's a cartouche. Right? I don't know if I can stop it. No, I can't stop it. But that cartouche at the end, do you know what that cartouche is? It's the council of the Anunnaki, which includes the hidden god, the divine triad of Isis, Osiris and Horus. By the way, you know that the same reality of the divine triad is the initiate on the planet, Jesus, the earth called Mother Mary, and the sun called Joseph of Arimathea. You do know that the word Arimathea means arithmetic. Everything's made. And I can tell you in 100 ways, right? Isis, Osiris and Horus. Your Horus, Hor is a boy or a girl, Us is girl. So it's an initiate on the planet, guided by the earth and the sun. And your destiny is to become the consciousness in a star, right? So the whole tablet tells you the story. On the left-hand side, there's a bee, okay? That bee means feminine. That's the earth. Next to it is the papyrus plant. Can you see it? That papyrus plant was the item that they used for everything. They made paper out of it, they made machines out of it, they made clothing out of it, and they made containers and compartments turn into houses. All from papyrus. And their word for papyrus is, you're going to love it, how about machine? Right? And then next to that, you've got 3 W's. Can you see that? And over the front of the W's is posts. 1 W stands for foreigner. 2 W stands for distant foreigner. And 3 W stands for far distant foreigners. So you've got the story there. And at the beginning, the bee is the earth, femininity, interlinked. In the middle, the dome represents the earth, and on top of it is Horus, on the half-earth, this precious land. So basically what that's saying to you, and on the bottom-hand side, you've got the emblem, what you think's a flying, what some people have said is a land speeder. It's actually the strength. It shows you the shoulder with a muscle in the middle, and it shows you the mighty strength. So basically what it's saying there, flying boat machines are the far distant foreigners on this precious land who are mightier than the gods. So where did they come from? Well, on the front of the temple, you've got Ramesses II with the goddess telling the divine triad, which of course is the personality, you, and the earth, and the sun, right? Where they got information. Because Ramesses II, or Seti I, who was the one who did it, went into the Church of God, which is represented as a pi ratio, right? And which they, all thrones they sit on, is the constant of the Fibonacci spiral, or the golden mean ratio, which means the physical earth. And they contacted beings from a higher dimension who came. And because Marduk had declared himself King of Kings, you know the story of Isaac, who declared himself King of Kings. The Anunnaki did not want Marduk taking over the planet. His forces had landed and were moving towards Baalbek and Jerusalem. Baalbek was a spaceport. And they didn't want Marduk to have power over that, having taken over the planet. So they dropped the nuclear bombs on his forces on the 5 cities of the plain, which included Sodom and Gomorrah, and created the devastation that now produced that land into the deserts. And all of a sudden you've got a totally different story to all of that. Well, I think I'll break there now, and then I'll come back and go on to... I hope you found that interesting. I'll be delighted to talk to anyone and show you the evidence where we can prove all of this. Thank you for listening to me.